Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Talon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services.
So the whole sort of idea behind the exhibition being that there's more than one seat, we've gained so much from collaborating with each other that we wanted to create an exhibition that celebrates that, highlights it, and showcases that work, like women working together is highly beneficial rather than needing to gatekeep.
Today I'm joined by Steph Martin and Abi Everett, two multidisciplinary designers who are close friends and rather talented. And we get together at Off Festival in my hotel room to talk about a great many things, including their stories, their paths into industry, the challenges, and their fantastic new exhibition, More Than One Seat, which aims to highlight the need for collaboration among women in the creative industries rather than competition. It's a great story. This is The Creative Condition. Hello, how are you doing? My name is Ben Talon. I am your host. This is The Creative Condition. How are you doing, guys? I hope you're well. The sun is finally shining. We've had 2 days on the spin. It feels good for the skin, although here in this little garden studio, the sun starts beating down at about 2 o'clock and I have to fight off nodding off at my desk. It's something I've gotten better at through an improved lunch diet recently, but feels like something of a relapse. Slightly, I'm so English, it's painful and embarrassing. I don't mean to start with weather talk. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's a British thing, maybe not. Maybe it's just a human thing. We're all at the mercy of it, but here we are. I hope you're good. I hope you enjoyed last week's conversation. I say conversation, that was just me. Ramble about risk after an incident on the way to nursery where I had to reassure my kids about why they were going to nursery, why a bit of risk and jeopardy was important, which was a hard battle for 2 4-year-olds, but I think I got part of my point across. And then on my way home, I was thinking about risk and jeopardy and the creative process and how it's really, really important to challenge yourself to get outside of comfort zones. So if you haven't heard that one, go back and check it out. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, as ever, Illustration X, representing many, many global artists, illustrators, set designers, hand lettering specialists, fashion designers. They do it all. They're a great bunch. And I want to draw your attention to a great little new newsletter they've been doing called Trend X. And here's the brief on it. I met up with Harry the other week. Harry being Harry Lyon-Smith, who runs Illustration X, who was the kind suggester and founding sponsor of this podcast. He was the one who thought that it might be good for running my mouth on a regular basis about creativity and got behind the show. And when we were chatting over lunch in London, he asked me if I'd seen the new Trend X report that they've been doing, and I hadn't. So I've gone away and I've had a look, and it's a really, really cool idea. So this is one that's going to be interesting for commissioners, for illustrators, for people connected with illustration and commercial art. It's time to explore current and emerging trends in illustration based on market data and insights from our team. In January 2024, we produced our first data-driven trend report for the illustration market. 3 months have passed, and researching the second one was a little daunting at first. How much can possibly have changed in the creative industries in 90 days? However, analysing the data and drawing on our agents' observations between January and March 2024, several interesting styles and creative approaches are emerging, and client tastes are certainly changing. Some of the trends we've identified might be iterations on what we talked about in January, but they do indicate new directions of travel, which are useful to be aware of when planning new illustration projects. Our report is based on data collected via our website with over 100,000 monthly visits, enquiries received, bookings taken, and the revenue generated by individual artists during the quarter. We've taken out legacy factors such as royalties and have surveyed our agenting team for their stylistic and aesthetic observations in order to better understand what clients have been looking for from each artist with each commission. With over 200 artists in our talent pool from different ethnic backgrounds and located in countries around the world, we're uniquely positioned to produce a report that is global in scale and reflects the popularity and commercial appeal of the styles they work in. It might help you shape the look and feel of your next project, whether you want it to be on trend, ahead of the curve, or timeless in its appeal. It's a cool idea, so using their unique position, as they mentioned, to gather this data, it's a really interesting look. And they've been looking at some of the more popular kind of styles of illustration. So one they've called Accidentally on Purpose, which is kind of like what I do. Bits of splashes, they're very human feel, organic. And then there's emerging the return of cute. So cute, like the Japanese style of kawaii and that kind of thing. And Hello Kitty brands in the 90s. It's another interesting one. And they list a few artists for each each trend. So it's well worth having a look. I'll put the link in the episode description or the show notes. Check it out with everything else now, illustrationx.com. So I hope you're good. Like I mentioned, it's a mixed bag over here. I mentioned last week about the kind of up and down nature of the commissioning market, and around my time as an illustrator, I love to do this stuff. I love to talk to people about creativity. And the more I do it, the more I get into helping people to understand and maximize their creativity, which is what this show is all about. It's not necessarily for that in the creative industries, though I am very grateful and very aware of the massive link between the arts and creativity. Of course, it's built on it, but my definition of creativity is using the Sir Ken Robinson description of having ideas that have value or applied imagination, and that filters into every single crack in our life. And that's where I'm at. I want to help people to understand theirs so that they can make the best decisions for fulfilling careers and lives. That's why I wrote the book, which is out now, The Creative Condition. You can grab that at bentalonwriter.com/shop, or on Kindle if you're an e-reader. Going to be recording the audiobook eventually. And it's why I do this show, and it's why I'm working on coaching models and structures now. I want to start moving into there, so working directly one-to-one with people and businesses to help them to fully understand pitfalls, risks, opportunities for big ideas, creative thinking, lateral thinking, all that, and all the things that go into optimal creativity, whether it's nutrition, mental health, well-being, adversity, all of these factors. I went to see Simon and Apova at Dixon Baxi yesterday. Popped in for a cup of coffee after I'd seen Harry, and Simon cracked up as I pulled out the A3 sheet that I'd been working on the train to try to map out my understanding of creativity. And it looked like that meme from Beautiful Mind where, he's moving around all the million different numbers and equations and everything else. And he just burst out laughing when that's your mind right there. And it really is, because 10 years of study have given me this unique standpoint and understanding of creativity, pulling in over 300 conversations just within the format of this podcast, let alone the day-to-day conversations and observations in my life. So it's very exciting, and I'm trying to build that. So if that's something that interests you, coaching, get in touch. I'm going to be running some free piloting sessions before long. I'm not going to be advertising them, but I'm going to be doing them with a mix of people I know well, people I don't know at all, and people that I know somewhere in between, to help me gauge whether my structure works, what needs tweaking, and to fine-tune that before I take it properly to market. Go back and listen to the Kerry Lyons episode, a fantastic creative coach. I will find the number also and maybe stick that in the show notes, but very, very interesting stuff and all along those lines. Anyway, without further ado, let's get chatting about Abi and Steph, today's guests. So, Abi Everett, I've been in touch with through socials for a little while, and I met her and Steph Martin, her close friend, at Off Festival 2023. And we reconvened at this year's Off Festival to have a conversation in my hotel room because we hadn't managed to get our act together enough to record before then. And it was Abi that suggested chatting to Steph too, because they've got a fantastic new project coming up called More Than One Seat, an empowered creative event by women for women, led by Stephanie Martin from Stuff Studio and Abi Everett, going under Evergood. And these two they're great. They're very inspiring to me, because I've got a real soft spot for multidisciplinary artists and designers, people who walk that line between art and design and produce great work at varying scales, original pieces of art, rebrands. I think it's very impressive to juggle all that and to find a cohesive brand and way to package that, and these guys do that phenomenally well. But just the organic conversations we were having at Off Festival around the idea of positive collaboration and equality, and how we're living in an exciting time where the tide is turning for historically marginalised demographics, be that the black community or women. You know, I've said on this show before that I'm very aware that I've had a very, when I say I mean me as a white male, I've had a very sweet deal historically, for the wrong reasons, and I didn't even know it until a certain age. But thanks to engaging exciting conversations like this that are candid, which are hugely important, that we have these conversations that might be thorny, and there might be points that people disagree on, but that's what's really rejuvenating about debate, about healthy debate, where you can sometimes, you know, it's cool to be willing to be wrong. It's cool to get things right, but it's good. It's even better if you do that in a way where you can all learn from each other and cross-pollinate. And I've said before, but I remember in the build-up to Brexit, this sense that it just wasn't going to happen. You know, it wasn't going to go that way. And that sensibility came from my industry, the creative industry. And I think that we're a sensitive bunch. I always say that we're a highly sensitive bunch. We are attuned to our environment. It is what makes us well suited for this industry. And I believe that that is what created a bit of an echo chamber that was skillfully and calculatedly exploited by media and the people who wanted Brexit to happen. But what I had was this diverse journey through my life, in that I'm from a very working class town. I have many, many friends still there, so I hear a broader range of conversations, often online, and I just had a feeling it was going to go the other way. Brexit was going to happen because people were frustrated and people were lashing out, and you know, I had sympathy for that. I had empathy for that. I still feel a little bit angry about Brexit, but I don't hold people totally responsible for that, because I think there was a lot of duping going on. There was a lot of manipulation. I don't want to go too far down that road, but I'm a big believer that if we have an open floor for better debate, and I'm not talking about the people who go around banging the drum for free speech when really all it seems to mean is that they don't want their beliefs challenged. I'm talking about open conversations among friends, among people from different backgrounds, among people with different standpoints, because God knows the amount of times I've been corrected or shot down or had someone make me think about things and see things in a very different way. And I love that, because I'm learning throughout my life and I'm happy to be wrong. And I think that when there's no malicious intent and you go out there and you're prepared to get a few things wrong and ask some questions and show your naivety, I think we all learn together, and it's very empowering, and there's a lovely community aspect to that as well as humans, and we all feel a great sense of belonging, which, as we know, is absolutely critical to creativity. And the conversations I was having with Steph and Abi at Off Festival were very much about that, and I personally thanked them, because I have a young daughter, Martha, who is now growing up in a world where, you know, women are starting to get better breaks than they ever did historically, certainly in my younger years and in my parents' generation. And that's really exciting. And as an expressive, dynamic kid who I'm trying to raise to be creative, it makes me smile and it makes me feel good when I meet people like Abi and Steph who are fighting that fight in a really positive way as well. It's not an aggressive, it's not a partisan way, and that's something we're going to talk about in this conversation. It's very much in an inclusive, here's what's happening, here's what we believe, you're all welcome to come and take part. And it looks great. The idea is brilliant. And I'm going to let them tell that story because I could waffle on forever about that. But it's safe to say, and I hope you can tell, that they really inspired me. And their event, More Than One Seat, is taking place in London, Friday 31st of May, 147 Stoke Newington High Street. It's from 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And you can find their event on Eventbrite. I'll stick that in the show notes as well. It's exciting. They're like I say, I'd love to see that update. I'd love to see 1 minute Abi, releasing a rebrand on LinkedIn, and the next minute seeing her on the step ladders creating a big mural. Very, very invigorating, inspiring stuff. And they're great. They're just lovely people too. So we had a great time at Off, and there's just something wonderful about that festival experience, about being supercharged in amongst it all and just feeling the energy of everyone being there out of passion and a desire to get better with their creativity. So that's what this conversation's about. You find us in my hotel room in Hoxton in Barcelona. Enjoy.
Right, well, seeing as I don't particularly know anything about either of your backgrounds, let's tell us about childhood. I always find
childhood.
I always got to go right back to the start because there's always a thread that you find, and sometimes the people don't even know it until you bring it up. It's really interesting, and it's good. So I don't know.
That's really interesting. I mean, I almost didn't remember my childhood for ages until I went to therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I just totally blacked out, and then I found out that I actually had attention deficit disorder, which is apparently like a normal thing to then not remember your childhood.
Yeah.
So like through psychotherapy, I then like unlocked like loads of stuff. But I was doing is it The Creative Way? The book.
Yeah.
I think it's called The Creative Way, and it says to you to like go back to your first ever like childhood memory to do with like art or anything like that.
Okay, that's interesting. What was yours?
I'm pretty sure mine was being told that it's not a lucrative career and to not bother.
By
my dad.
Okay,
yeah,
that's interesting.
And I think my mum was kind of in the same bracket, but she
what
was
did they do?
more. My dad was a banker, and my mum is cyber. She works in cybersecurity.
Okay.
It's a very, I guess like uncreative, yeah, very like formal, professional.
Yeah, formal. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And then how did you respond to that? Did you listen, or did you get defiant, rebellious, or?
I think I carried on because I really loved GCSE art, and when you have that one teacher that's like you just love them, you remember them forever. Yeah. They make such a big impact on your life. That was my art teacher.
Yeah.
But then when I went on to college, I was told to try and go into something that could be more valuable in terms of career and money. So I think I ended up taking I took textiles, which I don't really understand why that was deemed better. And then I did film as well. So kind of still creative, I guess, but very much was told to stay away from art.
It's funny, isn't it? Because they're all creative, but that, I think that as a compass is terrible, because they don't know what forms of art and what money you can make in there. It's when
it's something that you don't know anything about, it always just feels daunting, doesn't it? Because you're just there's so many ways to make money creatively, but potentially from their experiences they didn't. It's just that whole starving artist mentality. People just think that they think you're a worldwide global multi-millionaire or struggling, and there doesn't appear to be an in-between, when obviously 99% of us are in the in-between.
It's that fear of being an actor, I guess, isn't it? It's only the few make it.
I mean, if that advice was okay, fine art, be aware that you've got to sort of find the ways to pay for a studio space, and then suddenly we've got some logical advice there. That's all right. That's some stuff we should be made aware of. But to just go, oh no, art, it's so antiquated, but it's still so prevalent.
I think to them as well, it was just a flippant remark. I don't really think they thought too deeply about it. They were just being protective parents. So they weren't actively deterring me. I just think they sort of very flippantly said, but it's so easy to plant a seed that would then just stay with you as a sort of limiting belief for the rest of your life.
It comes from a good place. That's the thing. It's not to demonise any parent who's ever done that, because it's common, and it is ultimately distill it down to we don't like uncertainty. Our brains have evolved to try to eliminate uncertainty. So, and when you haven't experienced the art world and see how it moves, then of course you're going to caution somebody against that. So it's certainly not malevolent advice.
No,
but it's. I would love to contribute to changing it systemically.
Absolutely. I think that led to me then just being sort of ping-balling across multiple different things, not quite knowing what I wanted to do, but having this underlying current of knowing deep down what I wanted to do, but trying to find, I guess, the more commercial way of doing it. So then, like, my university degree was one of those ones where it's like a jack of all trades. And then throughout my whole 20s, I was like, oh, I need to work in advertising, when that's not what I wanted to be doing. And so I feel like I ended up not wasting, because obviously I learned a lot, but like spent a large chunk of time that could have just been, I think if I'd had early enough support and guidance, could have really pushed me into something quicker, rather than having to like slowly get that. I mean, everyone has their own journey, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And a lot of them are like that. A lot of them have got that kind of, I went somewhere to realise it wasn't right to come back here. And I think that when you look at the timing of that and where you went, the place in your life where you arrive at the place that is better, usually works out all right. As in, like, I couldn't really have got here any sooner. I mean, that is not always the case, but you know, I think you kind of have to see it like that, because this is where you are right now. So it's kind of like you
definitely.
can, you know. How about you, Abby?
Yeah. Childhood wise, I don't know. I've always been like the arty one. I've always been like creative, like always. Like I remember when like growing up, we had a hairdresser that would always like come to the house, and she would just like cut all the family's hair. And then like when it wasn't my turn, I'd just be like, she'd bring her daughter along, and we'd just go and like do like arts and crafts in the other room. And I'd always like, so it was just always very crafty and things like that, and just in everything I did. And then just had always did like art at school, did like graphics. Just did everything, and then I got to my art foundation. It's not really childhood, but did my art foundation, and I hated it. I really didn't like it at all. Yeah. Well, I loved the first part of it, and it was where we were trying different things. I loved that, but then I specialised in, I think they called it, it was graphic design, but I can't remember, maybe visual communications, maybe like the actual name for it there. But I really didn't get on with my teacher, and I was never like confrontational or anything like that. Like I never didn't get on with people, but I just found him so uninspiring, and it just completely lost my love of everything creative. So I didn't do anything for like probably only like 3 or 4 years, but like in like my early 20s, just did nothing, never went to uni, never did anything creative. And then I was just like, and I was just working in hospitality, and thought I wanted to go into events, and which obviously is creative in a different way, but I just lost it all. And then I don't know what happened, but somehow I just decided that I wanted to like go back into it. And then I spoke to my sixth form graphic design teacher. I just messaged her like on a whim on Facebook, and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, but I want to like get back into creativity, and like, you know, have you got any like top tips? And she did remember me, and she was like chatted away and told me about this place called Shillington College, which is a like graphic design course. And so I went off and did that, and then I came back from it. It was like an intensive like 3-month course. And then came back and spoke to Rose, and I was just like, I did it. And she was just like, oh my God, you just went and did it. And it wasn't quite as simple as that, like it's a spenny course, but sort of went and just, I was like, no, I just want to throw myself in, and just like got sucked into that. And then since then I've just been creative, but I was teaching for a bit first. So I ended up working. So Rose told me about Shillington. I went off and did Shillington, and then I came back and then told her about it. And then she was like, what are you doing now? And I was like, I was doing a few sort of internships at studios and things, just like little weeks here and there, wanting to work in an agency. And she was like, well, in the meantime, we need a graphics technician at college if you want to come do that. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. So I ended up doing that. And then after a year I did my teaching qualification and ended up teaching graphic design for like 3-4 years. And then I got to the point, and I was just jealous of my students. I was like jealous of their work. I was like, I want to be doing this in the real world, not just like advising you on like what's going to work best to like solve the problem. And that's when we moved to Brighton. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to just see what happens. And just went all in, moved to a different place, went freelance. And then it's just been a bit of a roller coaster since.
Do you think that that you're sort of arriving late to early 20s as opposed to 18 or whatever it might be, like, was a good thing? Because I in my own bit, I do, like, I was delusional, thought I could play for Leeds United, I was fucking rubbish at football, like, but I did PE GCSE because of that.
Yeah.
So I'd stay on an extra year at school to get art GCSE to go to art college. Then I had a misstep it wasn't a misstep, it was awesome, but I did a year at Bradford College doing graphic design, switched to illustration at UCLan. So I arrived at 20 and not 18. For me personally, now with hindsight, I'm really glad that happened, because I was just I'd done 2 years of going out every weekend, all weekend and all that stuff. And by the time I got to uni, I was a bit like, I'd done a few shit jobs, and I was like, nah, this is the only, I put all my eggs in this basket. And I just slightly wiser, you know what I mean, 2 years older. Is there any truth in that for you?
I think, I think so. I think everything like, and like even like you saying stuff about like, you know, maybe wishing you had more support like earlier on. I do think that everything like happens for a reason. Like even when it can feel frustrating, like the order of things is supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I think like I'd never regret not going to uni at all. And I think, and I sort of had that experience anyway, just going to visit friends like socially, and then I still like did all like the learning but in a much more condensed way, because I can get a bit impatient. So honestly, I think I would have got, if I had gone to university, I think I would have got really frustrated with like how long things take. Like some projects take time obviously, but like I just like to like go and just be like super immersed in it. So Shillington was perfect for me, and I think it was just, I was at that point like you said where I was like in my like early 20s when I went there, so I just was a bit more, I guess a bit more, obviously you're not an adult when you're 22, 23,
No,
but you're more so than when you're 17, 18, so
yeah.
I
think
focus a bit better, surely.
and I really wanted it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if I had gone to university and done a creative degree straight after my art foundation, I don't think it would have been the right thing for me.
Yeah.
I might have done all right, but I would have probably been in a completely different like path.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like
I think a
whereas
lot of going to uni is just growing up sometimes. It's not even necessarily getting the actual education. It's just like being away from home for the first time for some people, you know. Some people like going straight from college to uni.
Yeah.
And it's that.
I feel like if I had gone to uni, I would have probably ended up in an agency and probably wouldn't be doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I just feel like it would have been a completely different path. And it might have been a great path, but I feel like I would have, I don't know, maybe,
Well, I think there's some truth in that for sure, because I did exactly the same as you. I actually did a year of marketing. I'd gone travelling the year before. So I got to uni when I was like 19, 20. When I started doing the actual course, I swapped from marketing to a new course. But like the new course that I then started, although it was really good, I loved it, and I worked really hard at it, because they saw that I was working so hard, they almost kind of like funneled me from education into work. Like and I'm grateful for it, but they connected me to internships. They hooked me up with people, you know, where I was then moving to in London. So like I almost didn't get the chance to explore other stuff. Like maybe it was because I wasn't self-aware enough to notice that there was other avenues. But you know, at that age, you're just kind of going with what you're told by people that are older than you, right? So I went straight from, I guess, education into full-time work, because that's what I was told by my tutors what to do. Whereas, like, I guess you say, if you had done that, you could have ended up going that same way, but it almost gave you the opportunity to take a different route, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Did that feel like success to you at the time? Because the reason I asked that is because it is to go straight into work from education is not so common, and you know, and that's really cool. But success is such a sort of, it's only the beholder can truly know what success is, right? It's like, you know, your mum could be down in town telling all their mates that you're doing really well, but really you might not be happy even though you've got all the badges and the stars. But I don't know, because I've seen really contrasting examples. So some friends went straight to work for like the Chase out of their graphic design degree, while I had to tread water for 2 years, you know, working in Waterstones and factories and stuff to build my own thing. Some of them really streamlined with who they were, brilliant, climbed ever since. Others, all the badges, big clients, but a couple had like breakdowns and stuff because they were just crazy hours and they weren't ready for that and they needed a bit more time to grow. So it really can go either way. I guess that's why I ask. I wonder if you felt like, you know, did you connect with the job? And because I don't know advertising really at all.
No, I didn't connect with the job at any point, I don't think. Well, I feel like I did because I felt like I was doing what I was told success was.
Yeah.
So coming out of university, going straight into a job, I'd had an internship for like the last year of university. So I was almost to a point where I was like smug, because I was like, I'm working before I've even graduated, you know, like, look how sort of successful I am. Like I'm still even a student and I'm doing so well. And then going into advertising, and then I kind of I went into one agency, and then that just was not right for me for 8 months. And then from that I moved into another. And I learned a lot there. But I think in terms of what I actually learned was like, I ended up limiting my creativity because it was very much I just had to fit into a box of what the client needed, and I was a junior designer, so it was very much just like you just do what we tell you to do. And then but I did learn a lot about like work ethic, like advertising, especially when I was like 24, was pretty gnarly. Like I think my first week I did like 83 hours. Didn't have a chance to...
Your first week?
Yeah, in my first week. Didn't even have a chance to say no to that. Just had to like get stuck in and get on with it. Like, and then after that I went to another agency which was a little bit more low-key, still did some really interesting work, but I think I just kept getting pigeonholed. And although I felt like, I'm successful, I'm earning a good salary, I'm living in London, I'm living that city dream that everyone's told me is, you know, what success is, I was never really that happy. And I ended up quitting and going travelling for 3 months. And then when I came back, it was COVID and I was jobless and I had no government support, and I kind of just had to make it work. And that then felt like success. Like, almost scrabbling to pay rent. I was like, oh my god, the fact that I managed to pay my rent these first like couple of that felt more successful.
I've nailed it.
Exactly. Even though I was still freelancing for agencies, because that's kind of how I first went into it, that felt more successful than you know, doing the London progression for me personally.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like, you know, you're saying that it's like about the 83 hours kind of thing, and that's such a, again, it's such an old school mentality. But we are. I think we're seeing a sea change in so many areas. So, like, well, in a minute, I'd love to talk to you about your exhibition coming up, because it's amazing. Because this gets on different levels now. But I just saw a talk by Matt Bolton, who was in my taxi on the way from the airport, who runs Mox agency. Matt and Connor just did a brilliant talk, and they're working in advertising. They're a bit of sort of they call themselves advertising agency. They do a lot more, but they've just implemented 4-day week. So like. And they were saying, you know, they've got a lot of kind of, from clients, but they're fighting their corner, and they said it's still a work in progress. They're having to give and take a little bit. But what progress from 83 hours to now in advertising companies going 4-day week, every Friday off for every employee. It's like, and then like the work you're doing. I just had another conversation with Carmen from Nice Shit agency in Barcelona, and she was talking about that again, that same shift in seeing more women in this industry in prominent places giving great talks. And it's like, and I said like a big thanks. I want to thank you guys for the same reason. Not only with like a mother from another generation who didn't have that freedom, but now as a father of a daughter of a really creative, expressive little girl raising. It makes me feel good seeing you guys doing this and inspiring, and it's like, you know, and so when she's of an age, if she starts getting into this world, I'd be like, go and speak to them, because they're, you know, these are your idols, but you're there and you're ready and you're at the front line, and it's fucking ace. I think it's really, really good. And but like saying, you know, on different levels that's happening. There is a shift, I think, right now in understanding of human beings and what we need and well-being, and that it's not all about hours pumped in. It's about actually giving headspace for creativity, and that diversity isn't a form of box ticking. Actually, it's about cross-pollination, and we're all learning from each other. So, you know, I think it's exciting times in that regard. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I think, and like having the space for like creativity. Like, it's not, we can't be like on it all the time. So, just whether it's like 4-day weeks or, well, funny enough, we were actually saying this morning how we end up working like all weekends and stuff as well. But when it's your own thing, and it's like, yes, I might work weekends, but also I'm then like, I can come to Barcelona for a few days in the middle of the week and no one can tell me no. So you can still, there's like balance.
I think equally saying that we don't have any responsibilities. We don't have children that we need to like spend the weekend with, you know, like not need to, want to. You know, like things like that. So I think, you know, picking up a laptop every now and again, as long as you're in a sane mind, it's fine.
Well, the thing with that is again, it doesn't, you know, I'm a father of young twins, but I would echo that, because you just have to reframe it or package it different. You know, it's like, I don't quite, like, I've got this, and I'm very fortunate that Laura's super supportive of what I'm doing. I do the same for her, so she can have these like long weekends and stuff. But really, it's about looking at your own situation and seeing your own parameters, but knowing that that's still really important. And Stefan hit on it last night when he said about, you know, I know I do my every 7 years sabbatical, which is awesome, but not everyone can do the year. Doesn't mean you should sort of look at that and go, well, screw you, because I can't do that. It's like, no, what can I do to create my headspace? Even like I said last night, early parenthood, mine was on the toilet writing little fiction stories for 2 minutes at a time. But still, those 2 minutes were really vital in expressing my own emotional creativity. So I think you're right. It's
setting those boundaries, isn't it? Of like, this is time for me, my creativity, and like nobody's gonna get involved in this. Yeah,
absolutely. And you'll know, we'll both know this because you've now both got your own agencies, which we should chat about. But like, you know, you're steering your own ship. So there's that constant little voice of guilt that, I could just be doing that thing. And because it's your own thing and you are passionate, you can kind of justify that. But it is really important just to carve out time for absolutely nothing, even if that's, and it has been for me, staring at a wall sometimes.
So true.
Yeah, it's something I'm super aware of it, and I'm okay at it, but I need to get something I think I want to get better at. It's like having that, just giving myself that time, because sometimes it's a bit sometimes it can be forced, because you then end up, you kind of get to a point and you're like, I'm juggling so many things that then you like have to, it's like forced to have a break to like give your brain space, whereas I need to build it in a little bit more into like day to day.
We're quite good at like, we go to like exhibitions together. So we'll like carve a day out, won't we? If there's a bunch of exhibitions that we want to go to, we'll like take time off work, we go and like get inspired, and like that's great. But the only thing I would say with that is that we're together. So it's like we almost need to, and like anytime we take time out for ourselves, we're almost like, oh, should we go do something together? Like, should we do this together?
Yeah.
And it's like you need to force yourself to do it alone. And then I guess there's that little bit, not like fear, but it's always nicer to share it with somebody, right? But like you do need to do those things where you're just on your own. Like you need to go to an exhibition on your own, or you need to, I don't know, just even just going for a walk on your own, like without a dog, without a phone, just totally solo.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to just invite somebody.
Yeah.
It's actually harder to do it on your own.
Yeah. What's the arc of your friendship? I know that you had a little while when you didn't know that you were in the same thing, is that right?
Yeah, we just met through like mutual friends basically, and then we sort of just like knew each other and knew we were both creative but didn't really know any more than that, I guess. And then like just after like a year or so, we sort of just realised we were doing the exact same thing in Brighton and London, and we were just like, oh, hang on a minute, let's help each other out here. And then like Steph was saying, we just end up doing loads of like exhibitions, come to Barcelona together, we just end up, it's nice to have a colleague that's just pretty, like, it's like having a colleague, someone that like fully gets it and like has the same like ups and downs with like situations. Like, you know, we've both applied for like a few opportunities this year, which unfortunately like didn't go ahead. And like, so, you know, when you're feeling a bit down about that, then it's just sort of having someone that fully gets it. Like, it's all well and good having like your partner or other friends who are supportive, but it's like they don't necessarily understand it. So having someone that just fully gets it, and like if you've got client issues, and also celebrating stuff when something really cool happens, and someone who again just fully gets it, it's just nice to have that.
Because your partner, like, they understand, and obviously they're happy for your wins, but they don't truly understand like how epic that is, that that's just happened. Like
and in terms of like your own sort of timelines and advancing, and, you know, do you feel at a similar level?
I think so.
I think like recently we've kind of we almost like do this, I would think, like we kind of like stack. Like it's kind of like not, I don't want to say it's like a race, because we're not racing each other, but do you know what I mean? Like, you know, there's like horse racing games where like one pulls ahead and one pulls ahead. Like there'll be moments where I'm like, oh my god, like Abby is killing it with like branding, like she's doing so well, like, and I get a little, like, you know, the little pang of jealousy, but it's healthy, because then it's like, right, you know, pick up my game, come on, I've got to like, if she's gonna go off without me, I'm not getting left behind. I'm like chasing after her. And then there's little moments of like, you know, I'll maybe be doing something that's like more art related, and you'll be messaging me like, oh, I'm so proud that you've been doing all this stuff, like I want to be doing a bit more of that. And, you know, so I think we almost we don't get jealous of each other, but we almost like push each other to like definitely keep matching each other and level up. Like Abby levels up, then I'm like, right, I'm coming, I level up, and then becomes you know,
100%.
I ask because one of my closest friends, Danny Skerritt, is a music producer and electronic musician. We lived together for 5 years in Manchester, and we just have had this uncanny, that exactly what you described, the horses. It's like, that's why I asked, because I got the sense that you guys might like reflect that, and it's a lovely thing, because it is, we aren't competing, we're never sort of jealous over each other, but we certainly spur each other on. There's a quiet like resolve to stay on par,
exactly.
And it's wonderful, because that's, again, this is a deep, as I'm finding out as I do all this study, it's like this is a deeply evolutionary thing. It's tribal. We are social creatures by nature. Like, we need those positive social relationships. And when you are in the same field, and you sort of show each other what's possible, and then you can kind of hand bits back, and then the next time someone else might get this little break somewhere, and it's awesome, because without that you can end up spending too much time in your own head. And I think we've all been guilty of that a little bit as freelance creatives.
Absolutely,
100%.
And like, there's that saying, isn't there, that you should surround yourself with, you know, people who almost scare you a little bit, like trying to keep up with them, and not like in a sense of keeping up with the Joneses, but, you know, people that are going to like push you and make you feel empowered, and also like somebody who's going to hold out a helping hand. You know, like if I'm having a bad day, or I feel like I'm having self-limiting beliefs, or like I don't think that my work's very good, you know, having somebody like Abby that I can show stuff to, and, you know, you give me that confidence, you give me that affirmation of like, no, come on, you're just doubting yourself, like you are good, like keep going, keep doing, exactly.
You become coach for one another, don't you?
Exactly,
as good friends should and do. It's beautiful. You know, and then that's why things like this, we're off festival now as we're recording, and, you know, it's really funny walking around with Stefan Sagmeister yesterday. He used to like doe-eyed people in the coffee queue and stuff, and I'm like, I love it because I'm just like the little imposter on the side, and it's like, but I love that because there are levels, and people have worked hard to get to those levels wherever they are, and that's wonderful because it's like he put it as in a different context, but he put it as a carrot and the stick, and if you don't have an example in front of you to aspire to, and see that as a place you can get in your own way, true to yourself, then where does the incentive come from? And it's that. I heard someone put it recently, I don't know the term for when, so maybe it's an acronym, but when someone said, within business, and I think it applies to creativity, be either more than, less than, or different from. And I think it's a really good mantra to kind of like to think of. So, there's no point going and watching Stefan on stage and going, oh my God, I'll never be as good as him, because why would you want to be? Because you've got your thing and it's very different. But you can be different from, you can be less than, and you go your own way. It's like, it's interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So Abi, your studio, I love what I love about your stuff in particular is the crossover, but the different things that you do, but the consistency across them. So like your mural work, then your like a digital identity. There's a real consistency. Like how conscious is that, and what was like? Take us through that little journey a little bit.
It's really nice to hear that actually, because it's something that I've like been trying to work on, especially the past like couple years. Like trying to, like I really enjoy doing like graphic design, like branding work for clients, but then I also really like doing more like illustrative stuff where I have more like creative reign, whether that's like a mural, whether that's some like merchandise for a brand and they want like my creative like flair on it. It's not just totally their identity or whatever. And then for a long time I was like, they were two separate things, and now I'm starting to get, for like my like branding clients are starting to hire me for me and like my visual style, which is nice because then it feels like it's all come together and then feels cohesive. And so I was actually saying to Steph earlier, like I was putting together like a deck recently, and actually looking back at work from the past couple of years, I'm actually really proud that there's so much that I want to do more of, and like I'm happy to showcase. Whereas for a long time it was just like, it was good work, but it wasn't necessarily your style just develops and it will continue to develop, but it's nice to have it there.
Yeah, no, I get it, because I would echo that with in my own early years, and still now there is work that I'm really appreciative to get, like really thankful to the people who gave me it. Was successful, hit the brief, they were really happy, but I didn't want any more of it because it didn't align with where I was in my life, and I think like yours, there's a tangibility to when I look at all of your work now that resonates right across, and I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, and it means that I'm starting to get like work with clients that feel more like aligned. And like I recently did some work for a swimwear brand. She's based in Brighton, and actually years ago she was like on my list, and like we're in talks to like develop like some like prints that can maybe go on like a future actual collection, which is cool. But right now I've just like revamped her like visual identity, and it's just nice to have that. And again, she came to me because she's followed me for like quite a few years, but she was like, she'd seen previous projects I'd done and sort of like the colourful, like blocky style, and she was like, she didn't know exactly what she wanted, and we dove into it and developed it all, but like that was like what attracted her to me. And it's cool that when people are over that, and I'm just like, because then it gives me more, I'm still answering like their brief and designing what's suitable for their brand, but it's nice that it's typically like in this like visual space that I'm also in, which makes it more fun.
Yeah,
for me anyway.
It's a really rewarding feeling actually, and you have to back yourself to get there, and so that's well done. It's good that's like really cool to see. And how about you, Steph? Like, where are you at with your studio? Because I mean, I think you started in the pandemic, so you must still be relatively fresh.
I started freelancing literally when I got back in like 2020, literally in March, and I was freelancing with agencies for quite a long time just because that's what I knew, and then up until I'd say like last year, when I sort of said to you, didn't I was like this is it, I don't know more agencies, like I need to start moving away, I want to start working with like my own clients and stuff. But however much I do love branding, and I do branding for clients, the sort of stuff that I'm more interested in is I love ideas and I love concepts. So like I used to dabble in like art direction when I was in advertising as well. So a lot of the stuff that I like to do is like coming up with the ideas and then like executing them in like a nice like graphic layered like style. And so it's not so much that I have been like working out where I want to work. It's more like what I want to be and how I want to look, and then see, like, have the projects and start coming that way. So I started out doing that a little bit more, doing some proactive projects, and then started to have clients start to come to me. So I've just worked with some like really cool people, like Glenn Fussell, who's the co-founder of Mighty Hoopla, doing a bunch of stuff that he's doing for TV, which is really cool. And it's like this really grungy, graphic, like layered style. And so I've been just really focusing on like developing that. And then the idea being that then the brands that I get to work with, in the same vein that you sort of said, but I think I've gone like almost the other way, where I've picked the style first and like, and then kind of working with the clients off of that. And so it's going well, to be fair. Like, I've only really started pushing that like last year, and then I've started getting clients approaching me like this year that are like, we want to work with you for your collagey, layered, sort of colourful vibe. So they're coming in now, which is good. And then I'm leaning down the more art stuff. So I think the thing is like, because I do have like ADD, I want to do everything. So I think sometimes my work, especially when I like present it, never looks cohesive. And because it is very graffiti layered, like sort of abstracty, I think sometimes when you put it all together, it can look just chaos, like madness. But like, there is like a method in that madness. And I've started to have clients like, now be like, oh, we want that like, you know, collagey vibe with some nice colours, pops of colours and texture and all those little bits and stuff. So so it's working out pretty well now.
So I was just like earlier, and it's like quite quickly, I had my assumption, my reading of it was that that you value your emotional creativity as in self-expression, as in saying something first and letting people come to that. Is that close to the mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even when I was doing like my art GCSE, if you see some of the stuff that I did, it was all had a message. Like, always got something to say. So like, I think that's probably why I didn't really resonate sometimes with advertising, because you know, some of the stuff that I was producing, although like it was really fun and some of the stuff with the work looked really good, I just didn't feel expressive to me. Whereas like recently I've got to work with some really cool brands where like, you know, the work that they're doing or the meaning behind their work is like actually like close to my heart, or like I find really interesting. So then I find coming up with the ideas really easy, and then I just turn into like manic creative, and just stuff just starts flying. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
No, I love it. I relate to it, and I enjoyed, like, you know, the shots of you spray painting and that, and seeing the process, and you know, I think that's attractive to people, and I think it's human, and you know, there's only going to be more value placed on that as automation becomes more prevalent. So I think it's you know, both of you have got a very organic to what you do.
We've been saying this a lot. The
craft.
Like the
craft
element.
Exactly.
Like
one of my recent clients, literally the one reason that she worked with me was because she said it looks like you do everything with your hands first. Like when I did a bunch of stuff that client Glyn, literally I was like cutting stuff out of magazines, you know, using like old Playboy magazines, cutting stuff out to like build his logo up and things like that. And I love everything to start offline first, painting, drawing, sketching, collaging, and then bringing that in like together with the sort of digital stuff. Like I just really like human centric led style, which is I think, as you say, going to be more and more important.
There's real value. There's real value to that, and it gets you away from screens as well. Like, I don't know if you the bit I mentioned last night in the talk, but about the evolutionary mismatch. And again, it's that thing of we didn't evolve to be hunched at screens 12 hours a day and not moving our physical bodies and everything else. So actually, that's what I admire about Steph and stuff, and what has always felt like magic to me is like getting in a big space and getting some materials out and using my body and my mind, and you know, and then I love the bit on the computer when it's yin and yang, when it's balanced with the physical stuff. But I think now it kind of, I feel when I see students come straight to uni and just sit down and get either the tablet out and they haven't pushed any paint around or anything, I think like you're really limiting yourself here, and you're feeding right into that algorithmic form of creativity, which isn't really creative at all.
I also think it's really easy to then get out of the habit of managing mistakes. You're on an iPad, you just gone. You're on the computer, you just press the button, it's disappeared. Like if you're making a painting and you bugger something up, you've got to rip your hair out and then suddenly be like, right, how do I fix this? Like, you become so much more solutions driven because you're like trying to work everything out. Like, you can't just chuck everything in the bin because materials are very expensive, you know.
And find a way to make that mistake something unique and awesome. Like,
and then that translates over. Then when you get into digital, then that work style then comes across when you're working in that.
Well, it does,
space.
and none of this is to demonise digital. It's as long as the idea informs that process, then it's all valid, you know.
Yeah.
But it does excites me, and then again the fusion of the two, seeing the really interesting ways people are putting these things together and finding new things is very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the origin of the exhibition then, because I'm really interested in this and how this collaboration came about and what it means.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll say about we started doing like accountability calls.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of say a little bit more about the exhibition if you want. And then, so basically, we felt that we were kind of like being a bit stagnant, and kind of, you know, we had all these like things that we wanted to do and like achieve, but like
we're both mega ambitious and had this like huge list of things for like now, but also the future. And we're like, okay, we need to be realistic and like, you know, break it down. So we're like, okay, let's help each other. Let's like
hold each other accountable. And
just be realistic with like, okay, we can do all this, but we can't do it all at once. So like stages.
Yeah. So we have this like big spreadsheet. It sounds very like formal, but like we have this like big spreadsheet. It's like got each of our names at the top, and we kind of have these dates, and we like write our like goals down for that week, or like what we want to achieve, and then we like would have a call every Monday, which to be honest 30 minutes of it was just chatting. And then we would then hold each other accountable for like, well, we didn't berate each other, you know, if like I hadn't like met my goals, and you know Abby she's not there to tell me off. It was just showing up.
When someone's watching though, you're so much more likely to
absolutely
do it,
and do it better.
100%.
So we started doing that, and then we were both sort of said, you know, we wanted to like have an exhibition for our work at some point, and that kind of kept popping up in our like to do, didn't it? So then we were just like, right, let's just do it. We're doing it together. Like, let's just get it done.
Yeah, and almost like setting ourselves that like deadline of like, okay, if this is something we both want to do, so let's just, as Steph said, let's do it. Let's book it in, and then figure everything else out afterwards. And because we both want to, I mean, Steph's been doing way more in like her artistic like style, but than I've been doing lately. But we both want to just like develop that so much more. And we're like, okay, if we've got an opportunity to showcase it, hopefully then, you know, be able to like invite people and get some people there that might be interested. It might lead to future work, or at the very least it's just like a good opportunity for us to like have that deadline, create this stuff that's been on our mind for ages that we always put off because of client work and paid work. And it's like, no, you need that time, going back to that like creative space, like need that time to explore the things that we want to explore. And then we're like, okay, deadline, let's do this.
So then we were like, okay, how do we make this happen, because it's not going to be cheap. Like, you need to rent a space. And bearing in mind, like, we want to expand this stuff, but, you know, we're not multi-million-pound artists. We're not even, like, making 10k a year off our art. Like, we're designers, and that's kind of where the income comes from. So, granted, you can obviously use that income to, like, fund other, like, stuff, but it's still very self-funded. So we looked for, like, grants and stuff, and there's a really, really cool company called Morning FYI, and they do a grant every 4 months. Absolutely no strings attached. Anybody can apply any concept, any project, and they'll give you $4,000. So we applied for that, and we had like the whole idea behind the exhibition being collaboration over competition, because our entire careers together and joint has always been, which we've spoken about throughout this podcast, is, you know, lifting each other up and pushing each other further. So that was kind of like the premise behind it. To which we then presented, and we had, you know, a whole bunch of sort of strategy behind it, all around internalized misogyny and how actually women can be their worst enemies to each other, in the sense of, you know, once you get to a certain height in your career, like sometimes you make it harder for other people to come up because there's the fear that there's only one seat, like only you can be there, like, and you almost become more male the higher up you get.
That's interesting.
And you sometimes forget some of those female traits of empathy, care, you know, those sort of stereotypical traits that go with it. So there's a bunch of studies sort of talking about this and saying that, you know, the higher up you get, the less likely you are to help women beneath you, out of fear of them taking your place. And then if you like, I guess if you want to say a bit more about the exhibition, like the sort of guests and everything, because there's more to it in terms of like collaborating with other women. So
and then so we've got we've been super ambitious. We've got all these like ideas. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get that grant. So like
we were very close though.
We were very close.
We were second,
but were we actually second?
Yeah, they said we were in the top.
Oh, it's nice to know. But yeah, so we've like, there's parts of it we've had to like scale back a little bit just financially, unless anyone wants to just give us loads of money. That'd be great.
If anyone wants to sponsor us,
but we're still doing like cool stuff. We're like reaching out to like our networks and like just seeing like we've both worked with loads of like female founded businesses, so sort of seeing how they can like help contribute towards it. We've got some like female performers that will be there in the night. We're going to showcase our individual like new collections of individual work as well as some like collaborative work together. Which is yet to be created, but ideas are flowing. Ideas are very much there, and then we're offering a space as well to like some guest artists, so we can like showcase some like others' work as well, and just again reiterating like there's room for everyone. We can all be there and just celebrating.
Doesn't take any spotlight off anyone.
Yeah, and like by having some performers there, and like so one of my clients is like a baker, so she, like we're gonna get like beautiful like cake from her just purely for like aesthetics and also taste, but just like celebrating like just like female creativity and like how we can all be in like one room and it can just be like an epic night. So that's like a nice showcase of that.
I think that's brilliant. I never considered that, the almost pulling up the ladder subconsciously. That's really interesting, and like the sort of closest personal circumstance I can bring to that is as a podcaster surrounded by other creative industry podcasters. I have two options. I either do gatekeep myself, I don't shout about their podcasts because I worry that my listeners will gravitate there, or I recognise that we're all doing a unique form of strengthening the creative industries, and that if there is this stable and this pool of resources, that listeners can decide for themselves whose voice resonates better with them. So to look at that on a female to female level, that's really interesting, and I think that's a great idea.
I think there is like the fear of it's taken a lot of hard work for women to get into certain positions, and there's still a lot of work to be done in that sense. Like OFF is great at representing women, but there's still only 15% women speaking here, so there's things like that. So there's the fear, there's the hardness of getting there in the first place, and then there's the fear of, well, now I'm here, if there's only so many slots, as society is showing me that there is, does that mean that if I bring everyone with me, I'm going to get bumped? There's and the sort of studies around that are really, really interesting.
There was one, I can't remember, I'm so rubbish at stories, but I remember hearing something a while ago. There's a female comedian, I can't even think what her name is, but she's huge, and she was on this panel all the time, and there was like a panel of like 4 or 5 of them, this like show, and she was always invited back like every season as like the female comedian. But after a few years she was like, no, like I'm going to refuse it. She's like, I have the best time on it, it's so much fun. She's like, but I'm just then the only, there's loads of other brilliant female comedians out there, but like you're just always referring back to me. She's like, I'm going to say no so that someone else can have that opportunity. I can't think who it is, but I think that's a nice nice thing. She's like, I had a great time, I want to, but it's like the fairer thing is for me to like give that space to someone else, and I think that's lovely.
No, it is, but it's also really admirable. And I was having this conversation just now with Carmen and saying like, said the same thing I said earlier about how that then inspires other people, female or not. It's kind of like, I love that for myriad reasons, because I just, it's the dream to see like everyone getting opportunities together. But given that you guys have had a rougher deal historically, then that gives you like, I'm completely fine with all women events, or you get some people complaining that like there's an all black cinema screening because it's a film about things that was their battle, their fight, they had that adversity. I didn't have to deal with that. I mean, obviously I wasn't around then. You know what I mean? Though, metaphorically speaking, it's like I'm a white man. I've historically I've been favoured, so. I'm happy to take a back, but it's not even about a back seat, is it? It's actually just about recognising that we should all get the opportunities, and that's why I struggle with that kind of response of like, oh, but because that person is now getting a bit better deal, that it somehow is detrimental to me. It's not the case. No one's saying that. No, I don't think anyone's kind of going like fuck off men or whatever. It's it's a really like linear. It's a silly way to look at it, because it's just creativity is fed by diversity of all kinds. So but there's no getting away from the fact that you guys have to fight harder. Like you said, you can still see it now. And I guess you have to put like a Stefan style lens over it, as in like look at a longer term thing to say that okay, 15% is small and it's still relatively marginal. However, it's probably a lot bigger than what it might have been 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to build the momentum and keep pushing it higher and higher and higher.
And celebrate
we
that.
can all have a part in making that happen.
Yeah.
I think that's why we were really keen for the exhibition to really focus on it being about collaboration and celebration. You know, it's not like a women-only event. Like, men are invited. You know, people of all genders are invited.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a we are women and only we should be celebrated. It's very much like just a showcase of, you know, being in that moment and enjoying like where women have come from, what we have to produce, and like what happens when we work together. And like, that's not saying that, you know, we don't want to also celebrate men, because we love the men in our lives. It's just having time for us to shine, you know, like
absolutely, it's really important, and I think it's awesome that you're doing it. And of course it's not about that, but you know, at the same time, it's brilliant if it's an all women event. I just think it's really cool, and you know, we've had enough all men events in our in history. No, it might not be labelled as such, but the fact that it was a default is probably worse. You know, so it's kind of like.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes. It's really cool. Really, really cool.
I think as well, all the men in our lives have been like, they're all excited. Like, everyone's buzzing for it. Like, they can't wait. They think it's going to be so good. Like, nobody's really
decent people are, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, we all root to each other to a degree, and we're quite a tribal species. And I think that when you broaden what that tribe is, then it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, we'll benefit from it. It's cool. It's good. I think it's brilliant. I'm excited about it. And what's the date, babe?
June 1st.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's going to be good.
Nice.
I'm really, really excited. We've got a lot of work to do.
Creeping around.
Yeah.
But we were sat in like the cafe the other day, and we were just like, for our like collaborative work together, just like planning out some bits and pieces. So
it's going to be really interesting, I think, how our styles come together in the sort of like actual collaborative pieces, because like you're so like clean, and like the work that you do is just so like bold and like strong, and then and then mine is so like textured and layered and messy, and it's like, how do you, because really they are very different, so it's like, but they have got similarities, but so it's going to be really interesting to see. Well, I can see how it's going to come together, because we've already sat and worked it out, but like it's going to be interesting to see what everyone else thinks when it comes together. I think it's going to be really nice.
Very cool. And it's been Brighton, right?
No, London.
London. Okay,
London.
Cool.
It's
in my ends.
I can't think what the area's called.
Stoke Newton.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So that'd be nice. And even with like the collaborative side of things as well, like the event's called More Than One Seat, but we've like collaborated as good stuff. So we've like combined. So like I've recently been like working under, like in my creative space, like working under Evergood, and then Steph's Stuff Studio. So we were like, okay, we need to like literally bring those together. So we've got good stuff.
It's meant to be.
Presents
too good.
More Than One Seat, and that's like the nice little.
Too good of a name.
And then hopefully, we were even saying the other day, like hopefully then it'll be the start of many more, and then maybe like a nice like annual, or more regular than that, who knows, like an exhibition or something, or celebration where we can like collaborate together with like a different theme, and you know, however that looks, but hopefully good stuff.
It's exciting to just let these things evolve in it, and like watch it. Once you've done it, watch it, feel how you feel about it, and that's exciting, because then it'll become, you know.
Because we had really big ideas actually for it when we were doing the grant. We were going to have like an entire weekend. Like celebration, we were going to have like classes, networking event, you know, so it'd be interesting to see whether it evolves into something, you know, that's more of like a hub for women rather than just an exhibition space. But time shall tell.
We'll see what happens.
But
it's nice to, and a lot of the speakers this weekend have like been speaking about the importance of, and everyone always speaks about it, the importance of doing your own thing and exploring stuff outside of client work. And I think, like we said, one of the reasons we wanted to do this was to, well, many reasons, but one of the reasons was to give ourselves that deadline to work on stuff, and give ourselves that space, and like the importance, like consider like, you know, the exhibition, like good stuff as like a client in itself, so like we still need to put the work in so that we can both grow and see where.
It's so easy to set a deadline for yourself, but when you've put a deposit down on somewhere, it's it's a lot more scary. So
that makes that'll get you adhering to that deadline much better. Well, I feel I'm invested now, so fantastic. Like every person I talk to in this way, it's like I then love watching their onward journey, and like, you know, love sharing it about, and it's cool. I feel part of it in a tiny way. It's really nice.
I love it.
I love
that.
I saw Owen Harvey, who's a photographer. He shoots like subcultures and just gets the best stories. Like he went and shot all his lowrider crews in New York on a total whim, just through one of them going, yeah man, on an Instagram message when he said, like, I'd love to come and spend some time with you. Booked a flight out on that basis and just got all his stories, and but I just loved that soul in his work, and he does stuff like Dr. Martin's and around subcultures and all this stuff, and his personal brand is just so strong. But he recently won like a Time magazine like photography award for these these Matador series that he'd done and stuff. But again, I interviewed him going back 6-7 years now, but it's like I'm invested because I loved it and I had a conversation with him, and like, so I love that. Then when I see that, I'm like, getting on. It's like, it's really cool. That's what's lovely about this industry, and I think there is a lot of that actually. People rooting for each other.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
What's really nice as well is that I think sometimes you worry, like, oh, do I need to be a Stefan Sagmeister to like do stuff like this, or be noticed, or have a conversation with somebody who maybe, I don't know, seems out of reach to you. But like, I think the industry is really good at just like getting very excited, especially when like people are just kind of starting out and they're hungry and ambitious. Like sometimes it is a little bit more exciting actually than, you know, somebody that's been doing it for 30 years.
Of course it is. And you know, Stefan wasn't Stefan until he was Stefan. It's
exactly,
like he had to go through that same process that we did when no one knew him, and trust in those bold ideas that we now take for granted and think that he's just like a master of. You know, he would have had all the same apprehension and had to find his mentors, and probably got, you know, dissuaded by people, and it's time and time again these things repeat.
So we were saying about the whole festival, really we find it like quite like affirming. It's like we're on the right path. Like we're pushing ourselves, like we're trying to do big bold things, like we're trying to, like, you know, work hard and dedicate time and stuff like that, and really personal development alongside it. So to see that the people that have got like far along have been doing all the things that we're working hard at is quite nice to.
It's nice to know that we're
going there,
and also to some people we're already there. Do you know what I mean? Like on like a minor level, like I was like going back to when I was like teaching. Like I've had a few students over the years like who've got in touch, and they're now like they've now like finished university or this that, and I've had a couple of messages where they've sort of, when you're going back to when you said about you had some like influential teachers. Not saying I was influential, but I did have an impact on some people.
Of course you do.
And like it's so nice they've like got in touch like after like 4 or 5 years, and they're like, Abby, like, don't you know if you remember me? Like I did to Rose, my teacher. Like, but can you give me this tip on this, or like thank you so much for this, or like on reflection 5 years ago this was really helpful. And I'm like, oh my god, I've changed someone's life.
Well, to add to that, it's reciprocal. I get inspired by your stuff. Like I love, like, you know, when I see the shots of you doing murals and all that, I'm like, you know, it's big. I need to get a bit more personal identity in mine. And it's like, so it works. Just because I might have been doing it more years, it doesn't matter. It's reciprocal. That kind of, I don't know, I forget what the term is for it, but like in businesses, when you get like, some people do like reverse mentorship. So like, you know, when like someone who's been there way longer, like a CEO will be like the mentor will be the junior or whatever. I think that's a fucking great idea, because it keeps you fresh, and that's why I love doing like little bits of lecturing, because I don't think the students would ever believe it if you said it to them, because you have to get the experience to truly trust it. But I get totally inspired by them, and they give me new ideas, and it works both ways, and it always
100%,
has. You know,
100%.
So it's cool as well. There's somebody, I can't remember exactly who it was that said, but somebody doing a talk said about, like, you know, the less you know, the more like you're going to push yourself and like do crazy things, and like sometimes more interesting work comes from when you don't know anything, like, because you're just playing.
It does, like Max from Ragged Edge, he was like, you know, I always had slight hang-ups about not being formally educated and having just sort of gone into this business, and I was like, well, you're doing bloody well for it, but he's like, oh, you know, thanks, but you can just see that slight doubt still, but it brings a maverick tendency that isn't perhaps there when you have had the, I'm not saying it's not when you've had the formal thing, but you know, it certainly conjures something in people who haven't had the formal education, whenever, you know, maybe it's not a chip on the shoulder, but a slight kind of, you feel like you maybe not as valid. It's not true, but you have to go and learn it and sort of do, you know, balls out approach to feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of prefer like the non-formal education, because I just think, like, just throw the rule book out, like, do what you want. Like, for so long when I first like started working, I was like, oh, I need to be a branding designer, I need to be this, and I kept pigeonholing myself, and I was like, no, I like spray paint, I like painting, I like this, I like that. Okay, let me just combine all of the things that I like. Now how do I make money off of that? Like,
it's true.
You know, rather than being like, here's my education, this is what I know, and then this is what I have to work in. So sometimes it's nice, you know, having that little maverick
And you always learn by, I strongly believe you always learn by doing. Like, there's very few people that will genuinely learn better from like reading or listening, or like you obviously can learn from that, but I mean like taking that knowledge in and then like physically doing, and like you can't just like listen to your teacher and be like, okay, well I know everything. Like you need to do and practice, and like we say, make mistakes and rework them, and like, you know, let yourself down but pick yourself back up, and like all these things, and then be like, actually this is some weird like journey that I've like puzzled together, and actually it's
so true. Best advice in the world. You have to action it for it to be real, of course, to activate it, you know. So
and you can listen to the best advice in the world as well, but it's not, it's still, like I said, everyone's different, so it's still going to be a little bit different from you. Like, it's, you want to take all those snapshots from all these people that you admire, or people you might never have heard of, and you're like, okay, actually, like, I like what they've said there, this works here, and then take it together, and you've got a nice little personal advice bubble.
Yeah, I like that. I like personal advice bubble.
It's good.
That's cool.
No, it works. It's
fun.
Good. No, it is. It's good though, because not everyone can. Yeah, it's like it is a circle. Bubble works. And then
it pops, and all the great stuff comes out.
All the good stuff pops out.
There you
all
go.
the good stuff.
There you go. We've got a little lesson in motion now. I like it. Like an art school lesson. That's cool. Well, this has been really, really inspiring. Thank you guys for taking the time. And
thank you for
I'll share
having
the links
us.
to the show and all that
much.
stuff. And keep on. It's good.
Yeah. Excited. I'm excited to do the exhibition. Hopefully, come down and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'll do my best to get there. I'd love to.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you so much to Abi and Steph for taking the time out of their Off Festival 2024 to come and chat to me in my hotel room. We were all sat around my little table. I was sat on the end of my bed with my legs crossed, and these guys were on the chair, and it was really cool, actually. I really enjoyed that conversation, because I don't get to do these things in person as much as I once did. I mean, it's weekly now, and I'm down in Salisbury, which isn't the biggest place, with two young twins, so I'm not as free range as I once was when I was living in London and Manchester, and I could just rack up the interviews and go and do them in people's studios and my studio. So there's something nice about doing them on Zoom too and remotely, but you just can't beat the interaction. And I say the same thing of client meetings and any kind of business. You just being in the same room together and feeling the energy and consciously and unconsciously being aware of the body language and the flow of it all. It's really great. It's really great. So who knows, maybe I'll get to a point where I'm doing more of them in person again down the road. But for now, that was a lovely little reprise for me. So get yourself down if you can make it. Get yourself on the website and reserve a spot on Eventbrite. It's on Friday the 31st of May, more than one seat. 147 Stoke Newington High Street in London, N16 0NY, 6 till 10 p.m. And on the website, as you can expect, a reveal of their collaborative Good Stuff mural, an exhibition of our new individual collections, as well as work from guest artists, and a series of limited edition collaborative Good Stuff art prints. Very exciting performances from female artists, sweet treats from female-founded businesses, of course, and some bevs to celebrate the night with us. What a cracking Friday that sounds like. So go and check them out, and you can follow them both on Instagram at Stuff Creative Studio, all one word, and at Evergooood with 4 O's. I loved that. I hope it goes well to Abi and Steph. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to Illustration X for supporting the show. Check out their global range of illustrators and animators now at illustrationx.com. And don't forget to check out the wonderful and important Ukrainian Institute supporting the Ukrainian creative community at a time of war. ui.org.ua. Go back and check out the episodes on Risk and my big interview off festival with Stefan Sagmeister about optimism and long-term thinking. That was one of my career highlights. You can also check out the new Creative Condition YouTube channel _The Creative Condition, or follow my bio link on at The Creative Condition _ other way around on Instagram to find those videos, short clips and sound bites and the likes. But the full video interview from Off is up on that YouTube channel. You can watch it now. You can get the Creative Condition book at bentallenwriter.com/shop for the paperback printed editions signed. Yeah, the ebook at Kindle, and I'm going to start recording an audio book, which is going to be a monster task, but I'm feeling good about it. That's happening soon. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and review the show if you get a moment. Please do. It's really, really helpful. I'm trying to grow this thing. It's exciting times. Thank you for listening, guys. Take care. Get in touch if you need to. hello@bentalon.com, or I'm on social, predominantly LinkedIn, or at bentalon, or at _, at creative condition _ on Instagram. Have a brilliant week. Take care.